All right, settle in. Today we're talking about the technology that's quietly rewriting the rules of money. By the end of this, you'll understand why Ethereum isn't just a coin. It's a whole new kind of financial infrastructure. I am Volky, and this is Volky Econ 101. And yeah, this one's going to hit different. In 2008, Bitcoin showed the world that money didn't need a bank. But one teenager looked at Bitcoin and thought, okay, cool, but what if money could also think? That teenager was Vitalik, and in 2013, at just 19 years old, he wrote the white paper that would eventually move over $400 billion without a single bank involved. We're talking about Ethereum, and if you think that's just another crypto coin, you've already missed the point. Ethereum is not a currency. It's a programmable financial operating system, and banks have been quietly panicking about it for years. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn is stuff that most finance social media will never actually explain. To understand why Ethereum is such a big deal, you first need to understand what was broken before it existed. Every time you send money internationally, a bank takes 3 to 7 days and pockets a fee anywhere from $15 to $50. Every time you sign a contract, a lease, a loan, a deal, lawyers get involved, notaries get involved, institutions get involved. Ethereum's entire proposition is this. What if all that middleman work could be replaced by self-executing code on a public ledger that nobody controls? Not a company. Not a government, just math running on thousands of computers at once across the entire planet. That's the promise. And over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly how it's being delivered. Jason, let me ask you something. If I gave you $100 and said, this will automatically go to your landlord on the first of every month, no banks, no middleman, no phone calls, how much would you pay for that service?
Honestly, like $10 a month? My bank charges me that anyway and still texts me asking if I made a suspicious purchase.
Right. Now scale that. Ethereum does exactly that, but for every kind of financial agreement on Earth. Loans, insurance, trading, payroll, all automated, all trustless.
Wait, trustless doesn't mean sketchy, right? That's the thing people always misunderstand?
The origins. Let's go back to 2013. Bitcoin had been around 4 years, and the crypto community was asking, okay, what else can blockchain do? A teenager in Toronto named Vitalik had an idea. What if you could build programmable applications on top of a blockchain, Bitcoin? C's code was intentionally limited. By design, it could only do one thing: send and receive value. Vitalik proposed adding a programming layer, a Turing-complete scripting language that could run any kind of program, not just transactions. He pitched this to the Bitcoin developers. They said no, so at 19 he built it himself. In 2014, Ethereum raised $18 million in its crowdfunding sale, the largest blockchain fundraise in history at that point. In 2015, Ethereum went live. Within a year, developers worldwide were building things on it nobody had ever imagined. The first major application was the ICO boom, crowdfunding on Ethereum, which raised billions from 2016 to 2018. Then came DeFi, decentralized finance, lending, borrowing, trading, all without banks, all running on Ethereum. By 2021, over $100 billion in assets were locked in Ethereum's DeFi ecosystem. That's more than the GDP of many countries. Then NFTs exploded. Bored apes, CryptoPunks, built entirely on Ethereum's token standard called ERC 721, love them or hate them. NFTs proved one thing: Ethereum could represent ownership of anything, digital or physical. The machine. So how does it actually work? Let's break it down without the jargon. Ethereum is a blockchain, a database that runs across thousands of computers simultaneously, called nodes. Nobody owns these nodes. Anyone with a computer and internet connection can run one from Berlin to Bangkok. The core innovation is the smart contract, a piece of self-executing code that lives permanently on the blockchain. Think of it like a vending machine, You put in a coin, select your snack, it gives it to you. No cashier, no negotiation, no, sorry, we're closed. Uniswap, the largest decentralized exchange, processes billions in trades per day entirely through smart contracts, 0 human employees in the middle. Avi, a DeFi lending protocol, lets you borrow money against crypto collateral. No credit check, no bank approval, in minutes. In 2023, Ethereum processed over $11 trillion in transaction value. That's in the same ballpark as Visa. The native currency of Ethereum is Ether, used to pay for computation on the network. They call it gas. Every smart contract execution costs gas. This creates natural demand for ETH whenever the network is being used. In 2022, Ethereum made a massive upgrade called the merge, switching from energy-intensive mining to staking, cutting energy use by 99.95%. After the merge, Ethereum became deflationary. Less ETH is created than is burned. Less supply, same demand, you can guess what that does to price.
Okay, so wait, Ethereum is basically like AWS for finance? You're renting computing power to run financial apps except nobody owns the server?
That's actually a really sharp analogy. Amazon Web Services is centralized. Jeff Bezos could theoretically pull the plug. Ethereum's cloud has no plug to pull.
So when people say DeFi, they mean like normal finance but without the finance guys.
Without the gatekeepers, yes. A 17 years old in Nigeria with a smartphone can access the same lending rates as a hedge fund in New York. That has never existed before.
That's actually wild. So why isn't everyone using it?
Complexity. Gas fees during peak times, and frankly, most people still don't understand what it is, which is exactly why we're here. The money. Let's talk about the economic model, because this is where Ethereum gets genuinely interesting from an investment and monetary policy perspective. E wasn't just a currency, it's also a productive asset. You can stake it to help validate the network and earn yield, currently around 3 to 5% annually. Compare that to a US savings account which, despite the highest rates in decades, still underperforms inflation for most people. The merge introduced EIP 1559 burn mechanism. A portion of every transaction fee is permanently destroyed. Burned, gone. Since the merge, over 1.5 million ETH has been burned, worth billions. This is programmatic deflation written into the protocol itself. Compare this to traditional currencies, where central banks can print as much as they want whenever they feel like it, and often do. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with $10 trillion under management, filed for an Ethereum ETF in 2024. Let that sink in. JPMorgan, which called Bitcoin a fraud in 2017, now runs its own blockchain, Onyx, and actively studies Ethereum's architecture. In 2024, the second approved spot Ethereum ETFs, letting everyday investors get exposure without ever touching a crypto wallet. Stablecoins, USDC, DAA, predominantly live on Ethereum. Over $160 billion in stablecoin transactions flow through it monthly. That means Ethereum is already the backbone of digital dollar infrastructure, even if most users of those stablecoins don't know it. The irony is that the tech Wall Street spent decades building for itself is being rebuilt, open source, permissionless, right under their noses. The real world forget the speculation for a second. Let's talk about what Ethereum is actually being used for right now in 2025. Real-world asset tokenization, RWA, is the biggest emerging use case. We're talking about putting real-world assets on chain. BlackRock's Vital Fund, a tokenized money market fund on Ethereum, crossed $500 million within weeks of launching in 2024. Franklin Templeton tokenized a US government money market fund on Ethereum. Traditional finance is literally running on Ethereum rails now. The European Investment Bank issued digital bonds on Ethereum. Bonds, the most traditional financial instrument in the world, running on blockchain. Supply chain tracking, healthcare records, intellectual property rights. Ernst & Young is building enterprise solutions on Ethereum right now. Visa settled $1 billion in USDC transactions on Ethereum in 2023, a payment company using a blockchain for settlement. The future is already here. Layer 2 networks, Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, are scaling Ethereum to thousands of transactions per second at fractions of a cent. Coinbase launched Base, their own Ethereum Layer 2, serving millions of users with transaction costs under a penny. Total value locked in Ethereum's ecosystem exceeded $50 billion in 2024 real capital. Real users. Real economic activity. And yet, most of your friends still think crypto is just people trying to get rich on meme coins. The gap between what's actually happening in Ethereum and what the average person understands about it, that's where fortunes are made or missed.
Okay, so I'm convinced Ethereum is basically the internet of money. But what do I actually do with this information? Should I just buy ETH?
That's a personal financial decision, and I'm not your financial advisor on this couch. But I'll say this. Understanding what a technology does before most people do has historically been the most valuable position to be in.
Like people who understood the internet in 1995?
Exactly. The people who understood what the internet actually was, not just a new way to send emails. They saw Amazon, Google, and Stripe coming. Most people just saw AOL.
So the point isn't, should I buy ETH? It's, do I understand the infrastructure being built around me right now?
Now you're getting it. Financial literacy isn't about picking winners. It's about not being the last one to understand what's already happening. So here's where we land. Ethereum is not a bet on a coin. It's a bet on a new kind of internet, one where the financial layer is open, programmable, and owned by nobody. Whether that future is 1 year away or 10, the infrastructure is being built right now by some of the smartest developers on the planet. The fact that you sat through a full breakdown of how it works already puts you ahead of 95% of people who still think crypto starts and ends with Bitcoin. If this video made you think, drop a comment with one thing you learned that genuinely surprised you. I read every single one. Subscribe if you want to actually understand money, not just hear about it. New video every week. No fluff, no hype. Thanks for watching us, and hope to see you in the next videos. Stay with us.